Dead quiet, no peace. The Grave Matter Mysteries, Book 3, by Wynne Valentine. Chapter 1. The Family Plot. The trouble with family is that they usually stay dead. At least, that's how it's supposed to work. In Fallows, even the dead have a bad habit of stopping by for a chat. I stood at the iron gates of the Vance mausoleum, wiping sweat and limestone dust from my forehead with the back of a canvas glove. The heat was already a physical weight, pressing down on the Boneyard like a damp wool blanket soaked in fever sweat. It was barely 8 a.m., but my shirt was already sticking to my back, and the air tasted of ozone and decaying magnolia blossoms. "It's stuck, Merritt," Spade said, leaning his massive bulk on his shovel. He looked like an eroded cliff face in work boots. "It's not stuck, Spade. It's stubborn." "Stubborn implies it has a choice," Spade grunted. "That lock hasn't been turned since the Carter administration. You're gonna snap the key." "I am not going to snap the key," I lied, feeling the iron torque dangerously in my grip. This is Vance iron. It bends. It doesn't break. I had already stalled as long as I could. I'd walked the perimeter twice, checking the mortar joints for moss, clean, and the ventilation grates for wasp nests, empty. It was my routine. Establish the physical reality of the stone before dealing with whatever was inside. But now, staring at the keyhole, the normalcy felt thin, like a coat of paint over a crack. I jammed the skeleton key, cast iron, heavy as a revolver, and cold despite the heat, deeper into the lock mechanism. The Vance plot was the oldest in the sinking grounds, a small neo-Gothic fortress of gray granite that had housed my ancestors since 1840. The gate was a masterpiece of Victorian paranoia. Twisted vines, weeping willows, and enough sharp spikes to impale a very persistent bird, or a very stupid grave robber. It was also rusted shut. "Work said he was here last month," I grunted, twisting the key with both hands. "Said the hinges were fine. Said he oiled them." "Work says a lot of things," Spade rumbled. He tilted his head, listening to something I couldn't hear. His connection to the Boneyard was different than mine, less psychic, more auditory. "Birds are quiet today." I paused, hand on the key. He was right. The usual morning cacophony of mockingbirds, grackles, and the distant, irritated squawk of the osprey in the cypress tree was gone. The silence was heavy, thick. It felt like the air before a lightning strike. "Storm coming?" I asked, squinting at the cloudless blue sky. "No," Spade said. He looked at the mausoleum door, his dark eyes narrowing. "Something else. Something unnatural." The hum buzzed in my jaw. It started as a low vibration, like a cello string plucked underwater. "Observation." I frowned. "It's just a crypt, Spade. My crypt. The only things in there are my great-grandparents, a lot of dust, and maybe a few generations of very confused spiders." "Spiders don't make the birds go quiet," Spade said. "Predators do." "Well, unless a bobcat moved in with Great-Aunt Lucinda, I think we're safe." I gave the key a final, violent twist. Click. The mechanism groaned, metal grinding on rust, a sound like a scream cut short, and the tumbler finally rolled over. I pushed. The heavy gate swung inward with a shriek that echoed off the surrounding tombs, sending a puff of rust dust into the stagnant air. "See?" I said, pocketing the key and trying to look like I hadn't just dislocated my shoulder. "Just needed the Vance touch." "Or a sledgehammer," Spade muttered, "which is what I suggested." I stepped into the cool shadow of the entrance. The temperature dropped 20 degrees instantly. The air inside should have smelled like old stone, dry rot, and the vague, sweet scent of dried flowers. It didn't. It smelled of lilies, fresh, cloying lilies. And something else. Something copper-sharp and metallic, like a handful of pennies or fresh blood. The hum spiked. Wrongness. It hit me hard enough to make me stumble, a sudden pressure behind my eyes like an ice cream headache. Merritt? Spade didn't step past the threshold. He knew the rules. When the hum spiked, I went first. "Stay there," I whispered. I clicked on my mag light. The beam cut through the gloom like a solid bar, illuminating the familiar rows of marble niches. Grandfather, 1920 to 1985. Grandmother, 1925 to 2010. Great Aunt Lucinda, 1890 to 1978. The dust was thick on the floor. Undisturbed. No footprints. So where was the smell coming from? The beam swept to the center of the room, to the main slab, the granite viewing table reserved for the next head of the family, the one that was supposed to be empty until Rourke or I decided to kick the bucket. It wasn't empty. A woman lay on the stone. She was dressed in a beige linen suit that looked expensive and out of place in a damp crypt. Her hands were folded neatly over her chest, fingers interlaced. Her glasses, wire-rimmed, practical, were perched on her nose. Her gray hair was pulled back in a severe bun. She looked peaceful, except for the fact that she was clearly dead. Her skin had the waxy, gray pallor of someone who had been gone for hours. And then I saw her mouth. The beam trembled. Her lips were not just closed, they were sealed. Thick, black thread had been stitched through the delicate skin of her lips, pulling them tight in a grotesque parody of silence. Cross stitches. Neat, precise, surgical. The hum screamed. A high, jagged static that tasted of metal and panic. Silenced. Hush. Quiet. I dropped the flashlight. It clattered on the stone floor, the beam spinning wildly, sweeping across the vaulted ceiling before settling on the woman's face like a spotlight on a stage horror show. "Spade," I whispered, my voice sounding too loud in the small space. It bounced off the granite, mocking me. "Yeah?" Spade's voice was tight. He could smell it now, too. "Don't come in." I backed up, my boots scrapping on the granite. I couldn't take my eyes off the black thread. "Call Pasco. Call him now." "Why? Is someone hurt?" "No," I said, staring at the stitches. "Someone is way past hurt. I think someone just left me a message, Spade." "What message?" "Shut up," I whispered. "Or else." Detective Ellis Pasco looked tired. He always looked tired. It was his default state of being. But today, he looked like he'd aged a decade since breakfast. He stood just outside the gate, notebook in hand, sweating through his cheap department store shirt. He was staring at the rooster on the gate, a live black rooster that had appeared out of nowhere, with deep suspicion. "Let me get this straight," Pasco said, not looking at me. "Your family crypt, your lock, your key." "Rourke has a key too," I said, sitting on a nearby headstone. "Jeremiah Vance, 1870 to 1902. My hands were still shaking, so I tucked them into my pockets to hide the tremor. "But the lock was rusted, Ellis. I had to force it. No one has opened that door in years." "Right. Rourke." Pascal scribbled something. "The coroner says she's been dead less than 12 hours. Rigor is fully set. No sign of struggle, no defensive wounds on her hands, no bruising on her neck." "So how did she die?" "We'll know after the autopsy," Pascal said. "But preliminarily, it looks like heart failure. Or poison." "And the mouth?" I asked, forcing the words out. "The Stitching? Pascal stopped writing. He looked at me then. His eyes were gray and unreadable. Post-mortem, he said. Done after she was dead. Which means it wasn't torture, Merritt. It was ritual. Ritual? Or a warning, Pascal said. You tell me. You're the expert on spooky shit. I fix headstones, Ellis. I don't sew people up. But you know people who do, Pascal said. Or your family did. That's low, I said. Even for you. I have a dead woman in your crypt, Pascal snapped. I get to be low. ID in her pocket says Dr. Arlene Crouch, from Miami. Miami? I frowned. What was she doing here? Genealogist, Pascal said, according to her business card. Specializing in historic lineages. I felt a cold knot form in my stomach. Genealogist. Historic lineages. The Vance family history was a minefield of secrets, most of them buried for a reason. Did she have a client? I asked. Yeah, Pascal said. Found an appointment book in her bag. She had a meeting scheduled yesterday morning. With who? With Rourke Vance. The hum buzzed again. Warning. That's impossible, I said. Rourke would have told me. And Rourke doesn't care about genealogy. He thinks the past should stay buried. Does he? Pascal closed the notebook with a snap. He didn't tell you to fix the gate, did he? No. I decided to come. The hinges were... I trailed off. Rusted shut, Pascal finished. Which means no one used this door. Not Rourke, not you. So how did she get in, Merritt? I don't know. It's a solid stone box, Pascal said, gesturing at the mausoleum. One door, one key. Stone walls 2 feet thick. Unless she walked through the wall, someone with a key let her in. Or someone let her in through a back door I don't know about. I stayed silent. I knew about the drainage tunnel. Rourke had mentioned it once when he was drunk. But telling Pascal about a secret entrance into the crypt would only make us look guiltier. I need to talk to your uncle, Pascal said. Officially. He didn't do this, I said, standing up. Rourke catches spiders and puts them outside. He cries during insurance commercials. He doesn't sew people's mouths shut. Maybe not, Pascal said. But he knows something. And judging by where she ended up, I'd say asking about the Vance family tree is a dangerous hobby. He signaled to the uniformed officers who were stringing yellow tape across the weeping willows. Tape it off. Seal the perimeter. No one goes in, not even the mason. He walked away, leaving me standing in the sun. I looked back at the mausoleum. The dark mouth of the door was taped over. The black rooster on the gate crowed again, a harsh, rasping sound. I pulled my phone out. I dialed Rourke. It rang. And rang. Voicemail. Pick up, old man, I whispered at the screen. Tell me you didn't do this. Tell me you have an alibi. But the only answer was the silence of the boneyard, heavy and waiting. Merritt. I jumped. Jasper was standing on the path, holding 2 coffees in a cardboard carrier. He was wearing a seersucker suit that made him look like a confused plantation owner. He looked at the crime scene tape, then at the rooster, then at me. I brought you a latte, he said. But I have a feeling I should have brought whiskey. And possibly a lawyer. Both would be good, I said, taking the cup. My hand shook, spilling foam on my boots. Who is it? Jasper asked quietly. A genealogist, I said. Found in my crypt, with my uncle's appointment card in her pocket. Jasper adjusted his glasses. Well, that's messy. Even for us. It's worse, I said. The hum, Jasper. It wasn't just murder. It was silence. Someone sewed her mouth shut. Jasper went pale. Sewed? Like a doll, I said. Someone wanted to make sure she couldn't tell anyone what she found. Jasper looked at the crypt. What did she find? I don't know, I said. But whatever it is, it's hidden in my family history, and I think Rourke has been hiding it for a long time. I looked at the phone again. Still no answer. We need to find him, I said, before Pasco does. If Pasco gets him in the box, Rourke will crumble. He'll confess to the Kennedy assassination just to make the yelling stop. Agreed, Jasper said. But where would he go if he's panicked? The carriage house, I said. He goes to his books when he's scared. Then we go to the carriage house, Jasper said. He pointed to the gate. But first, tell me that bird isn't looking at you. The black rooster was staring directly at me. Its bead black eyes were intelligent, judging. That's not a bird, I whispered. That's a message. From who? From the landlord, I said, shielding my eyes against the sun. Maman Brigitte, and she's not happy about the tenant. The rooster let out a sharp, grating crow that sounded like a lock snapping shut. We have to go, I said. Now. Chapter 2. The Genealogist. My truck didn't have air conditioning. It had 460 air conditioning. 4 windows down, 60 miles an hour. Usually, that was enough to keep the swamp heat at bay. Today, it just felt like I was driving through a hairdryer set to hell. Jasper gripped the passenger door handle with white knuckles. His seersucker suit was wilting, and his glasses were fogging up in the humidity. Slow down, Merritt, he said, his voice vibrating with the rattle of the suspension as we hit a washboard section of River Road. If we die in a traffic accident, we can't clear your uncle's name, and I refuse to be identified by dental records. We're not going to die, I said, swerving around a pothole that had been a permanent resident of the county since the Clinton administration. But if Pasco gets to Rourke first, my uncle is going to spend the night in a cell. And Rourke doesn't do cells. He requires high thread count sheets and Earl Grey tea at 4 p.m. sharply. He's a suspect, not a hotel guest, Jasper pointed out. And Merritt, the crypt was locked. I know. From the inside? Impossible, I said, hitting the gas as the road straightened out. The mechanism is a deadbolt. You can't throw it from the inside without a key. And there's no keyhole on the inside. Elias Vance didn't believe in exit strategies for the dead, so someone locked it from the outside, Jasper reasoned, his accountant brain working the logic problem. Trapping her in, or placing her there after she was dead, I said. Which means they had a key. My key was on my ring. Rourke's key. I trailed off. I didn't want to say it. Rourke keeps his key in the study, Jasper finished for me. In the humidor, with those Cuban cigars he thinks are illegal, but are actually just overpriced Dominicans. He does. Is it possible, Jasper asked carefully, that he hired her and it went wrong? Rourke? I laughed. It was a sharp, ugly sound that startled a heron in the ditch. Rourke faints at the sight of unorganized bookshelves. He cries during insurance commercials. You think he sewed a woman's mouth shut? People do strange things to protect family secrets, Jasper said. And you said the hum felt like silence. Maybe he was trying to keep her quiet about something she found. What secrets? I demanded. The Vances are an open book. We're broke, we're weird, and we work with stone. That's it. Are we? Jasper asked. Look at the history, Merritt. The plantation. The wealth your great-grandfather had. Where did it go? Maybe Arlene found out. Maybe there's a debt. A debt? Indentured servants, Jasper suggested. Or worse. Your family came from money, Merritt. Old money usually has blood on it. I didn't answer. I just pressed harder on the gas. The hum buzzed low in my jaw. A warning static. Legacy. The Vance estate, or what was left of it, sat on a rise overlooking the river, surrounded by ancient oaks draped in Spanish moss. The main plantation house had been sold off years ago to a developer who turned it into a haunted B&B that failed within 6 months due to actual hauntings. But Rourke had kept the carriage house. It was a beautiful building, all Tampa brick and creeping ivy, with a slate roof that cost more than my college education. It looked peaceful, idyllic. I skidded into the gravel driveway, kicking up a cloud of white dust. Pasco's cruiser wasn't there. Beat him, I breathed. I killed the engine and jumped out. Jasper followed, checking his watch. "We have maybe 10 minutes, he said. Pasco called it in while we were leaving the Boneyard. If he drove the speed limit, he's 5 miles out." I ran up the steps. The front door was unlocked. "Rourke!" I shouted, bursting into the foyer. Silence. The grandfather clock in the hall ticked steadily. Tick, tock, tick. The air smelled of lemon polish, old books, and smoke. Not wood smoke, paper smoke. Sharp, acrid, and chemical. "The study," I said. I ran down the hall, boots skidding on the hardwood. I grabbed the brass handle of the study door and shoved it open. Rourke was there. He was standing by the fireplace, a heavy iron poker in his hand. A small fire crackled in the grate, despite it being 90 degrees outside. He was feeding pages into the flames one by one. "Rourke!" He jumped, dropping the poker. It clattered against the hearth. He turned to face me. He was wearing his silk dressing gown, paisley, absurdly elegant. But his face was pale, his eyes wide and glassy. He looked frail. For the first time in my life, I saw the age in his face, the sagging skin, the fear. "Merritt," he whispered. "You're early." "Put the fire out," I said, striding over. I grabbed the pitcher of water from his desk and doused the flames. Steam hissed up, smelling of wet ash and wet ink. "What are you doing?" I asked, looking at the charred remains of the papers. "Are you destroying evidence?" "I'm tidying up," Rourke said, his voice trembling. He tried to straighten his collar, a reflex of dignity even in disaster. "Just old correspondence, receipts, nothing important." "Does that correspondence have anything to do with Arlene Crouch?" Rourke flinched. The name hit him like a physical blow. He sank into his leather armchair, the fight draining out of him. "You found her," he said. It wasn't a question. "I found her," I said. "In the crypt, on grandfather's slab." "Is she—" He couldn't finish the sentence. "She's dead, Rourke. Mouth sewn shut." Rourke closed his eyes. A tear leaked out, tracking through the powder on his cheek. "Oh, Arlene, I told her not to dig." "You knew her?" Jasper asked, stepping into the room. He picked up a half-burned page from the grate, examining it with his forensic accountant eyes. "She came to me," Rourke said, "last week. She was researching the founding families for a book. She had questions about the Vances, about the lineage." "What lineage?" I asked. The hum buzzed in my ear, low, insistent static. "Secrets, blood, stone." "The servants," Rourke whispered. "The ones who came from Haiti, the ones who married into the Irish line. She found the records, Merritt. She knew about Maman Brigitte. She knew about the gifts, the keepers," I said. "She knew we could hear the dead." "She called it the affliction," Rourke said. "She thought it was genetic, a madness passed down." "So you killed her?" I asked, my voice cold. "To protect the family name?" "No!" Rourke's eyes snapped open. "I paid her. I offered her money to leave it out of the genealogy, to keep it quiet. I gave her a check yesterday." "A check," Jasper noted. "That links you directly to the victim and establishes a motive. Bribery." "Where's your key, Rourke?" I asked. The key to the mausoleum? Rourke looked at the humidor on his desk. I walked over and opened it. The cedar smell wafted out, rich and tobacco-heavy. The cigars were there. The key was gone. It was here, Rourke stammered. I saw it yesterday. I used it to show her the engraving pattern on the handle. You showed her the key? I asked. You let her touch it? She was a historian, Rourke pleaded. She was interested in the ironwork. Who else has been in this room? I asked. No one, just me. And Arlene. Arlene was in here alone? She came to get the check, Rourke said. I went to the kitchen to make tea, Earl Grey. I left her here for maybe 5 minutes. I closed the humidor with a snap. The timeline clicked into place like a lock tumbling. 10 m.m. Arlene arrives, I said, ticking it off on my fingers. 10:15. You show her the key. 10:20. You go to the kitchen. The key is unsecured. She pockets it. 10:30. She leaves with the check and the key. She didn't go home, Rourke. She went straight to the cemetery. She stole it? Rourke looked betrayed. But we discussed the font choice for the tomb update. She wasn't looking at fonts, I said. She was looking for an entrance. And she found one, Jasper finished. And someone else found her. Someone who didn't want to bribe her. Or, a voice said from the doorway, she met the man who gave her the key. We spun around. Detective Pascoe stood in the hall. 2 uniformed officers were behind him, looking uncomfortable in the posh hallway. Ellis, Rourke said, standing up shakily. I didn't. Save it, Rourke, Pascoe said. He walked into the room, his eyes scanning the mess. The wet ashes, the open humidor. Burning documents? Really? You watched too many noir movies in the 40s. It wasn't evidence, Rourke pleaded. It was personal. Everything is evidence now, Pascoe said. He walked over to Rourke. Dr. Rourke Vance, I need you to come with me. Am I under arrest? You're a person of interest in a homicide investigation, Pascoe said. We found your appointment card on the body. We found you destroying papers, and unless you can produce that key... He looked at the empty spot in the humidor. I didn't think so. He didn't do it, Pascoe, I said, stepping between them. The key was stolen. Arlene took it. Can you prove that? Pascoe asked. No, but... Then step aside, Merritt, or I'll arrest you for obstruction. And I really don't want to do that. I don't want to put the whole Vance family in a cell today. I looked at Rourke. He nodded slightly. It's all right, Merritt, he said, his dignity returning like a coat he'd put back on. He tightened the belt of his robe. I'll go. I have nothing to hide, except the papers you just burned, Jasper muttered. Pascoe didn't cuff him. He just guided him out the door, his hand gentle on Rourke's elbow. I watched them go. The flashing lights of the cruiser washed the hallway in red and blue, reflecting off the portraits of our ancestors. The silence rushed back in, heavy and suffocating. He didn't do it, I said again. I believe you, Jasper said. He walked over to the fireplace. He picked up the poker and sifted through the wet ash again, but someone wanted us to think he did. He pulled a scrap of paper from the mess. It was charred around the edges, damp but legible. Merritt, he said. Look. I looked. It was a corner of a handwritten note. The ink was running, but I could make out 3 words. Debt is owed. A debt, I whispered. The hum spiked. Old. Owed. Blood. Arlene wasn't just researching genealogy, I said. She was collecting. I looked at the empty humidor. We need to find out what she knew, I said. We need to see her files. Pascoe sealed her office, Jasper said. Crime scene. Good thing you're the director of the Historical Society, I said. Do you have a master key? Jasper adjusted his glasses. He smiled, a nervous, tight little smile that I was starting to like. "I have too," he said, "and I know where the security cameras have blind spots. But Merritt, breaking into a crime scene is a felony." "So is murder," I said, snatching my keys off the table. "And if we don't find proof, Rourke is going down for it. Are you coming, or do I have to commit a felony alone?" Jasper sighed, adjusting his seersucker jacket. "I'm coming, but if we get arrested, I'm billing you for my bail." "Deal," I said. We walked out into the heat. The police cruiser was already fading into the distance, taking Rourke with it. We didn't have time to mourn the dignity of the Vance name. We had to break into the Historical Society and find out who Arlene Crouch really was before Pasco booked my uncle for murder. Chapter 3. The Society. The Fallows Historical Society is located in the basement of the old courthouse, a space that smells of mildew, dust, and the lingering resentment of Confederate widows who refused to believe the war ended in 1865. It is a place of silence, secrets, and terrible carpet. "The side door," Jasper whispered, guiding me through the azalea bushes. "The lock is finicky." "Are we really doing this?" Jasper asked, pausing with the key in his hand. "If we get caught, I lose my license. You lose your truck, probably." "If we don't do this, Rourke dies in a cell," I said. "He's fragile, Jasper. He needs Earl Grey and silence. A county lockup will shatter him before the arraignment." "Are you in, or are you just here to critique my lockpicking?" Jasper sighed. "I'm in." Click. We slipped inside. The air conditioning hit us first, a wall of frigid, recycled air that smelled of old paper. The main reading room was dark, illuminated only by the orange glow of the streetlights filtering through the high, barred windows. Shadows stretched across the long oak tables like grasping fingers. The portraits of past judges stared down at us, their painted eyes judging our felony. "Arlene's temporary office is in the back," Jasper whispered, his voice cracking slightly. "Archive room B. Lead the way, Director. You're the criminal mastermind tonight." We crept through the stacks. I felt like a burglar in my own history. Every creak of the floorboards sounded like a gunshot. "Stop," Jasper hissed, grabbing my arm. We froze. "What?" I whispered. "The sensor," Jasper said, pointing to a small, blinking red light in the corner. "I forgot about the motion detector in the genealogy section." "You're the director, Jasper. How do you forget the alarm?" "I usually enter through the front door, like a law-abiding citizen." "Can we bypass it?" "We have to crawl," Jasper said, looking at his suit trousers with despair. "Under the beam." "Fine. Get low." We dropped to our hands and knees. We crawled past the local history section, dragging ourselves across the industrial carpet. "This is humiliating," Jasper muttered. "I am a CPA. I have a master's degree." "You're a hero," I whispered. "Think of Rourke." We reached the hallway. We stood up, dusting off our knees. "Room B," Jasper pointed. The door was slightly ajar. "Did you leave it open?" I asked. "No," Jasper said. "I locked it yesterday." I felt the hum buzz in my jaw. Intruder. "Someone beat us here," I whispered. We moved closer. The only sound was the hum of the HVAC system and the thud of my own heart. Inside the room, we could hear the distinct sound of drawers being ripped open, papers shuffling. Rip! Someone was tearing pages. I looked at Jasper. He looked terrified. His glasses were crooked. "Do you have a weapon?" he mouthed. I patted my pockets. Car keys, flashlight, a mostly empty pack of gum. "Great," Jasper mouthed. I took a deep breath. Elements of surprise. I kicked the door open. "Hey!" I yelled, shining my dazzlingly bright LED flashlight into the room. A figure in black, hoodie, face mask, gloves, spun around. They were standing over Arlene's desk, holding a thick file folder. "Drop it!" I yelled. The figure didn't drop it. They didn't freeze. They reacted with professional speed. They grabbed a heavy book from the desk. The History of Cherokee County, Volume 1, illustrated, and threw it at me. Thump. It hit me in the shoulder, spinning me around. Ow! The intruder bolted. They scrambled over the desk, knocking over a lamp, and dived toward the window well. "Get him!" I yelled. I recovered and lunged. I grabbed the back of the hoodie. The fabric was slick nylon. My fingers slipped, but as we grappled, I smelled it. Not sweat, not fear. Sandalwood. Expensive, cloying sandalwood cologne. The kind that lingers in elevators and costs more than my rent. The intruder kicked back. A boot connected with my shin. Gah! They scrambled up the window ledge. The window was open. Another bypass. "Jasper, tackle him!" Jasper stood there, frozen. I can't tackle." The intruder slipped through the window. We heard boots hitting the gravel outside. I ran to the window. I saw a dark shape sprinting down the alleyway toward the river. "He's fast," I said, rubbing my shin. Too fast for Rourke. Definitely not an old man. "He took the file," Jasper moaned, picking up the scattered papers on the floor. "The Vance file. It's gone." "Not all of it," I said. He dropped something when I grabbed him. I knelt down. Under the desk, half hidden by the overturned chair, was a stack of loose photos. I picked them up. They were glossy 8x10s. Black and white, but crisp. These weren't photocopies. These were originals. The first one showed the interior of the Blackwood plantation found, the basement. But it wasn't the basement I knew. This was old, 19th century. Scaffolding was everywhere, and in the center of the room, workers were installing jagged black tiles on the walls. The tiles looked like shark's teeth. "What is that?" Jasper asked, looking over my shoulder. "Soundproofing," I whispered. "Early acoustic dampening. Obsidian? It looks like a torture chamber." Jasper shuddered. I flipped to the next photo. It was a close-up of a man standing in the unfinished room. He was tall, wearing a waistcoat and holding a trowel. I knew that face. I had the same nose. "Silas Vance," I said. "And look who is with him," Jasper pointed. Next to Elias stood a man in a black suit. He was holding a book. "Jeremiah Blackwood," Jasper identified him. Silas's great-grandfather. They knew each other? "They were partners," Jasper said, picking up a handwritten note from the floor. "Look at this letter." He read it aloud. "My dear Jeremiah, the room is complete. The silence is absolute. We can begin the extraction on the next full moon. E.V." "Extraction?" I asked. "Extraction of what?" "The hum?" Jasper guessed. "Or the gift. Arlene's notes said she thought it was a disease. Maybe Elias thought he could cure it. By locking someone in a soundproof room? Primitive shock therapy, Jasper suggested. Sensory deprivation? Elias built a prison, I realized. He didn't build the silent room to hide a book. He built it to hold a keeper. Who? I looked at the photo again. In the corner, barely visible in the shadows, sat a third figure. A woman. She was bound to a chair. "Her," I whispered. "The madness in the blood. Maman Brigitte's vessel." "This explains why Silas wants the room," Jasper said. "He thinks the power is still trapped in the walls. Residual energy. And if he has the tuning fork," I said, remembering the missing item from the crypt, "he has the key to unlock it." "We have to go to the plantation," I said. "We have to see if the room is still there." "Tonight?" Jasper looked at his watch. "It's 2 a.m. and we just committed a felony. The night is young, I said, and the felony is already done. We might as well get our money's worth. I hate it when you make sense, Jasper sighed. Thinking about Rourke sitting in a cell, terrified and alone, sparked a fire in my chest. Let's go, I said, before Silas opens that room. We climbed out the window, leaving the Historical Society slightly more historical than we found it. Chapter 4. The Collector. The Blackwood plantation wasn't just a house. It was a scar on the landscape. We parked the truck a mile down the road, hidden in a stand of pines that smelled of turpentine and neglect. The air was thick with the sound of insects, crickets, cicadas, and tree frogs creating a wall of noise so dense you could lean against it. It's loud tonight, Jasper whispered, checking his flashlight. Everything is screaming. They know he's home, I said, wiping sweat from my neck. Nature doesn't like Silas Blackwood. We hiked through the overgrown fields. The cotton had long since gone wild, turning into a tangle of thorny brambles that tore at our clothes. The main house loomed ahead, a massive Greek revival structure that had been restored to a terrifying perfection. The pillars were white as bone, gleaming in the moonlight. The windows were dark eyes watching the swamp. No security? Jasper noted. No cameras? He doesn't need cameras, I said, touching my jaw. The hum was silent, but not the empty silence of a vacuum. It felt organized, polite, as if the ghosts were standing in a receiving line, waiting for permission to speak. It's not just muffled, I whispered. It's curated. He's controlling the signal. We slipped through the garden. The smell of jasmine was overpowering, sickly sweet, masking the smell of the swamp mud. We found a cellar door around the back. It was unlocked. Too easy, Jasper murmured. Or an invitation, I said. We went down. The basement wasn't a root cellar. It was a museum. Glass cases lined the walls, lit by low-wattage museum bulbs. Inside were things. Is that a shrunken head? Jasper pointed his light, his voice trembling. Sansa, I corrected, looking at the dried skin and sewn lips. Amazonian. And that's a hand of glory. And that is a Tibetan thigh-bone trumpet. He collects death, Jasper shuddered. Every culture, every ritual. He buys it. He's looking for power, I said. He thinks if he owns the tools, he owns the magic. We moved deeper. At the far end of the hall, behind a rack of vintage wine that cost more than my life, I saw it. A wall that didn't fit. The brickwork was different, newer, or fake. Here, I whispered. I pushed on a wine crate. The whole rack swung outward on silent hinges. Behind it was a door. It wasn't wood. It was iron. Heavy, pitted, and ancient. It was covered in symbols, keeper's marks. Silence. Bind. Hold. The silent room, Jasper breathed. I touched the handle. It was cold. Absolute zero. It's unlocked, I said. I pulled. The door swung open. We stepped inside. The moment I crossed the threshold, the silence hit me. It wasn't just quiet. It was an absence. The blood in my ears stopped rushing. My heartbeat vanished. The sound of Jasper's breathing disappeared. The walls were lined with the black obsidian tiles from the photo. Thousands of jagged teeth pointing inward, absorbing every sound wave. But the room was empty. No body, no book, no Elias. Just a single wooden chair in the center, and a tea set, a silver tray, 2 cups, a steaming pot. Expecting company? A voice asked. We spun around. Silas Blackwood was standing in the doorway. He was wearing a velvet smoking jacket that looked ridiculous and terrifying at the same time. He held a cane with a silver raven's head. He smiled. "I took the liberty of brewing Earl Grey," he said, his voice surprisingly clear in the dampened room. "I know how much the Vances appreciate a good cup of tea." "Where is she?" I asked. "Where is the woman you kept in here?" "Woman?" Silas walked into the room. The sound of his cane on the stone floor was muted, dull. "Oh, you mean the history. The history is gone, Merritt. Elias removed it a century ago." "I entered a room," I said. "It's empty." "Is it?" Silas tapped the obsidian wall. "The room remembers. It remembers every scream, every prayer, every silence." "Did you kill Arlene Crouch?" Jasper asked, stepping forward. "Did you silence her like this room?" "Dr. Crouch was a clumsy amateur," Silas sneered. "She stumbled onto a truth she couldn't understand. She thought the silence was a metaphor. She didn't know it was a weapon." "So you killed her?" "I didn't have to," Silas said. "She opened the wrong door. She found the other silence, the one in the crypt." "There is no other silence," I said. "Just this room." "Is there?" Silas smiled. "Then why did Elias build the mausoleum on top of the sinking grounds? Why did he build a drain that flows backward?" He poured a cup of tea. "You're looking for a book, Merritt. But the book isn't the key. The key is the frequency." He pulled something from his pocket. "The tuning fork." "Elias's fork," I said. "You stole it." "I recovered it," Silas corrected, "from the scene of the crime. Pasco missed it. He was too busy looking at the body." He struck the fork against the tea tray. Ding! The sound hit the obsidian walls. It amplified. Pain. White-hot pain shot through my skull. I fell to my knees. The hum in my jaw screamed in agony. Jasper collapsed, clutching his ears. Silas laughed. It was a soundless, visual laugh. "This room amplifies the frequency of the keepers," he said. "It turns your gift into a migraine. Dr. Crouch didn't survive it. Let's see if you can." He struck the fork again. I screamed, but the room swallowed it. "Stop!" Jasper yelled. "We'll leave. Just stop." "Leave?" Silas raised an eyebrow. "Oh no, you just got here, and the tea is still hot." He walked to the door. "Enjoy the silence, Miss Vance. It's the only thing you're going to hear for a while." He stepped out. The iron door slammed shut. Clang! The lock clicked. We were trapped. In the dark, in the silence. And the tuning fork was still vibrating on the table, driving a spike into my brain. Chapter 5. The Breakout. Pain has a frequency. It's high, sharp, and blinding. It tastes like aluminum foil and panic. I lay on the floor of the silent room, the obsidian teeth looming over me in the darkness. The only light came from the crack under the door. The tuning fork on the table had finally stopped vibrating, but the echo was still bouncing around inside my skull. "Merritt?" Jasper's voice was a whisper, but in here, it sounded like he was shouting directly into my ear canal. "I'm alive," I groaned. "I think. Is my head bleeding?" "No," Jasper said, crawling over to me. "But your nose is." I wiped my face. It came away wet. "He targeted the hum," I said. "He knew exactly what frequency to hit. He knows about the keepers." "How do we get out?" Jasper asked. "The door is iron and locked from the outside." I looked at the obsidian walls, the sharp black glass. "Elias built this room to contain sound," I said, "which means the walls are dense. But obsidian is glass. It's brittle." "You want to break the walls?" "I want to break the vacuum," I said. "If we can shatter the dampening tiles, the acoustics will normalize. And if we can create a loud enough noise, maybe someone will hear us." "Who?" The crickets? The house, I said. Old houses settle. Old houses creak. If we disrupt the structural integrity of the basement, we bring the house down? Jasper looked horrified. Just a little bit, I said. Hand me the teapot. I grabbed the heavy silver teapot Silas had left. It was solid sterling. Cover your ears, I said. They're already covered. I stood up. I spun the teapot like a discus. Crash. I smashed it against the obsidian panel nearest the door. T-I-N-K. A shard chipped off. Not enough. Harder, Jasper said. Use the chair. We grabbed the wooden chair together. On 3, I said. 1, 2, 3. We swung the chair into the wall. Crack shattered. A massive section of obsidian tile exploded. Shards rained down on the floor. The silence broke. The rushing sound of the air conditioning from the hallway flooded in. The pressure in my ears popped. It works, Jasper yelled. Hit it again. We smashed the chair against the wall again and again until the wood splintered. We exposed the brick behind the obsidian. Now, I said, picking up a table leg. The mortar. I started hammering at the mortar joints. It was old lime mortar. Soft. Thump. 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 Merritt, Jasper said. Do you smell smoke? I paused. Smoke. Investigating smoke. Silas, I whispered. He's not just trapping us. He's destroying the evidence. He's burning the house. With us in it? We are evidence, I said. The door handle turned. Click. Wait. It unlocked? The door swung open. Silas wasn't there. The hallway was filled with smoke. He unlocked it? Jasper asked. He wants it to look like an accident, I realized. 2 trespassers die in a house fire, tragically trap themselves in the wine cellar. Run! We sprinted out of the room. The smoke was thick, black and oily. We stumbled through the basement, coughing. The stairs! I yelled. We scrambled up the stairs to the kitchen. The kitchen drapes were on fire. We burst out the back door into the garden. We collapsed on the grass, gasping for the humid, clean air. The crickets were still screaming. Behind us, flames were licking up the side of the plantation house. He burned it, Jasper wheezed. He burned a historic landmark just to kill us. He missed, I said, watching the fire spread. We have to call the fire department, Jasper said, reaching for his phone. No, I stopped him. If we're here when the cops show up, we get arrested for arson. Pasco already suspects Rourke. This would nail the coffin shut. So we leave? We leave, I said. And we let Silas think we burned. We ran to the truck. I drove fast. No lights. Until we hit the county road. He knows, I said. He knows we know. He tried to kill us, Merritt. He burned down his own house. He burned down Elias's house, I corrected, to hide Elias's secrets. I looked at the rearview mirror. The glow of the fire was fading, but the smell of smoke was still in my hair. This is my family's mess, I whispered. Elias built the cage. Rourke hid the key. And now I have to be the one to break it. And now, I said, gripping the wheel harder, now it's war. Chapter 6. The Public Eye. The invitation to the estate sale of Mrs. Gable had arrived on heavy, cream-colored cardstock with a black border. It smelled of lavender and old money. In Fallows, even the estate sales were polite about the fact that they were essentially picking the bones of the dead. I don't think we should go, Rourke said, pacing the length of his study. He was wearing his anxious robe, a burgundy silk number with fraying cuffs. It's too soon, Merritt. The police are still asking questions about the crypt. If we show up bidding on archives, it looks suspicious. It looks like business, I corrected, scrubbing the last of the cemetery dirt from my fingernails in his bathroom sink. Dr. Thorne had an appointment with Mrs. Gable the day before he died. That's a lead, Rourke. And if her library is being auctioned off, that lead is about to be sold to the highest bidder. Silas will be there, Rourke whispered. I paused, the towel in my hands. Good. I want to see him. I want to look him in the eye, outside of a dark alley. He's dangerous, Merritt. He's not just a collector. I know, I said. He's a Blackwood, but he's also a citizen, and citizens have to abide by auction rules. I walked out of the bathroom. I had changed into my civilian clothes, dark jeans, a clean white button-down, and my good boots. I didn't look like a mason. I almost looked respectable. I need you to authorize a check, I said. Rourke sighed, sitting down at his desk. How much? $5,000. Merritt! That's the budget for the roof repairs. It's an investment, I lied. We're buying history. The Gable estate was a sprawling Victorian monstrosity on the edge of the historic district. It had turrets, wraparound porches, and enough gingerbread trim to choke a termite colony. Today, the lawn was covered in white tents. Cars lined the street, Lexuses, Mercedes, and the occasional vintage Jaguar. The vultures had gathered. Jasper was waiting for me by the front gate. He was wearing a seersucker suit that made him look like a demented pharmacist. You're late, he hissed, checking his watch. The preview started 20 minutes ago. The porcelain dolls are already going for ridiculous prices. We're not here for dolls, Jasper. I know, but my mother collects them. If I see a rare bisque, I am morally obligated to bid. We walked up the driveway. The air was thick with humidity and the smell of sweet tea and greed. The crowd was a mix of serious collectors, bored housewives, and antique dealers from Miami who looked at the locals like they were zoo animals. Keep your head down, I whispered. Don't engage with the garden club. Too late, Jasper moaned. Mrs. Higgins, the mayor's wife, was bearing down on us like a floral print battleship. Merritt Vance, she boomed. I didn't expect to see you here. I heard about the trouble at the cemetery. Is it true the police questioned you? Just routine, Mrs. Higgins. I smiled, baring my teeth. Checking the locks. You know how it is. And Rourke? Is he, well? She tapped her head significantly. I heard he's been having spells again. Rourke is fine, I said coldly. He's cataloging a new acquisition. Oh, what is it? A voodoo doll, I said. Of a busybody. Mrs. Higgins gasped. I grabbed Jasper's arm and dragged him toward the library tent. You can't say things like that, Jasper whispered furiously. She controls the zoning board. She's a ghoul, I said. Now focus. Box 42. The library tent was cooler, smelling of old paper and leather binding. Tables were stacked high with books, first editions, local histories, and stacks of correspondence tied with ribbon. There, I pointed. Box 42 was a battered cardboard crate labeled Misc Papers, 1900 to 1920. Why this box? Jasper asked. It looks like trash. Because Dr. Thorne's diary mentioned it, I said. He wrote, Gable, Box 42, Elevation. It's code, Jasper. Elevation drawings, blueprints. I opened the flap. The box was empty. What? I stared at the bottom of the crate. There was nothing but a single dead moth. It's empty, Jasper stated the obvious. Someone got here first, I hissed. The preview started at 9 o'clock. Who was here at 9 o'clock? I was, a smooth voice said behind us. I turned slowly. Silas Blackwood stood there. He was wearing a cream-colored linen suit, a Panama hat, and holding his raven-headed cane. He looked like the devil on vacation. Mr. Blackwood, I said. Miss Vance, he tipped his hat. And Mr. the accountant. Director, Jasper corrected weakly. I see you're admiring Box 42, Silas said. A fascinating lot. Or it was. You took the contents? I accused. Before the auction? I purchased them, Silas corrected. A private sale, perfectly legal. Mrs. Gable's heirs were quite happy to avoid the auction fees. What was in it? I asked. Just old papers, Silas smiled. Letters, receipts, and detailed architectural drawings of the original Vance Mausoleum foundation, including the drainage system. My stomach dropped. He had the map. Why do you want my family's blueprints, Silas? I stepped closer. Are you planning a renovation? I'm planning a restoration, Silas said softly. Of silence. The hum isn't something you can fix with a hammer, I said. No, Silas agreed. It requires a tuning fork, which, I believe, your uncle possesses. Rourke doesn't have anything. He has the folio, Silas said. The 1840 edition. The one with the frequency notations. Tell him, Merritt. Tell him I'm willing to pay. Generously. And if he refuses? Silas leaned in. The smell of his cologne, sandalwood and ozone, hit me. It was the same smell from the Historical Society. Then I will have to amplify my offer, Silas whispered. Fire is a great negotiator, don't you think? Are you threatening to burn us out? I'm predicting the weather, Silas said, stepping back. It's a dry season. Old houses are essentially kindling. Be careful, Merritt. He turned to the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, Silas announced, raising his voice. I have just acquired a rare collection of local history. To celebrate, drinks are on me at the club. The crowd cheered. They loved him. They didn't see the shark in the linen suit. They just saw the money. He has the map, Jasper whispered, terrified. And he threatened to burn the carriage house. He won't just burn it, I realized. He'll wait until we're inside. I looked at Silas, surrounded by admirers. We have to leave, I said. We have to warn Rourke. But the auction. Forget the auction. The real bid just started. We ran back to the truck. I drove like a maniac, swerving through the respectable streets of Fallows. He knows about the folio, I said, gripping the wheel. He knows Rourke has the frequency. What frequency? Jasper asked, clinging to the dashboard. The resonance, I said. The note that shatters the silence. Or seals it forever. Elias wrote it down, and Rourke has been hiding it for 40 years. If Silas gets that book, he turns the Boneyard into a black hole, I said. No ghosts, no hum, just empty stone. I pulled up to the carriage house. It was still standing. Safe, Jasper breathed. For now, I said. But we need to move the book. Tonight. To where? To the one place Silas won't look, I said. Because he thinks it's already empty. The mausoleum? No, I said. The brickworks. The kiln. That's ironic, Jasper noted. Hiding a book in an oven to save it from fire. It's masonry, I said. Fire brick. It can withstand 2,000 degrees. It's the safest safe in the world. I got out of the truck, and then I smelled it. Smoke. Not from the house. From the garden. Rourke! I screamed. I ran toward the backyard. Rourke was standing by the fire pit. He was burning papers. Rourke! What are you doing? He looked up. His eyes were wild. They're coming, he cried. I have to destroy it before he takes it. The folio? I grabbed his arm. Rourke, no! I stamped out the fire. I pulled the leather book from the embers. The cover was singed, but the pages were intact. He threatened us, Rourke sobbed. He called on the phone. He said he was coming. He is coming, I said. But we're not destroying our history. We're fighting for it. I looked at the charred book in my hands. Jasper, I said, get the truck. We're going to the brickworks. Now? Right now. The hum buzzed in the air. Run. Hide. survive. It wasn't a warning anymore. It was a command. Chapter 7. The Cipher. We hid the folio in kiln number 4 at the Vance Brickworks. It was a massive, beehive-shaped structure of cold red brick that smelled of a century of coal dust. I wedged the book behind a loose fire brick in the flue. Unless Silas decided to start firing bricks at 2 a.m., it was safe. "Okay," I said, wiping soot on my pants. "The book is safe. Now we need to know what it says." "I took photos of the relevant pages," Jasper said, tapping his phone, "before Rourke tried to turn it into a bonfire." "Good. Let's go to your office. We need coffee and a whiteboard." The Fallows Historical Society was quiet at night. It felt less like a library and more like a tomb for paper. "This cipher," Jasper said, projecting the image of the folio page onto the wall of his office. "It's not standard Masonic code. The symbols are wrong." I looked at the projection. Elias Vance's handwriting was jagged, frantic. The page was covered in sketches of sound waves and architectural angles, and in the margins, a series of symbols. A raven, a tuning fork, a cracked bell. "It's not a substitution cipher," I said. "It's symbolic, allegorical." "The raven is obviously the Blackwoods," Jasper said. "Jeremiah Blackwood used a raven seal." "And the tuning fork?" "Resonance," I said. "But look at the frequency. 440 hertz, standard pitch." But Elias crossed it out and wrote variables. "Variables?" "Temperature, humidity, barometric pressure. The pitch changes with the environment. That's why he built the room deep underground. Stability." "But what's the key?" Jasper asked. "To unlock the room? The key is the fork," I said. "We know that, but the lock is the room itself." I pointed to a sketch of the crypt floor. "See these tiles? The mason's puzzle." He labeled them. Truth, justice, silence. "Silence isn't a Masonic virtue," Jasper noted. "It's a monastic one." "Elias was obsessed with silence," I said. "He thought the hum was a curse. He wanted to cure it." "Wait!" Jasper zoomed in on the image. "Look at the corner. There's a reference. See, the Grimoire of Saint Domingue, page 42. "Saint Domingue?" I frowned. "That's Haiti, the old name." "We need that book," Jasper said. "Do you have it?" "No, but the university does. The Oglethorpe collection." I checked my watch. "It's midnight. The library is closed." "I'm the director of the County Historical Society," Jasper said, puffing out his chest. "I have interlibrary loan privileges. And a key card." The University of North Florida Fallows campus was a collection of brick buildings trying very hard to look like Harvard. The library was a brutalist concrete bunker from the 1970s. "The Oglethorpe collection is in the basement," Jasper whispered as we swiped into the service entrance. "Climate-controlled, restricted access." The basement was freezing. Rows of metal shelves stretched into the darkness. "Grimoire of Saint Domingue," Jasper muttered, scanning the Dewey Decimal numbers. "It should be in the folklore section. 398.2. We walked down the aisle. The silence here was different than the mausoleum. It was dry, sterile. "Here," Jasper pulled a thin, leather-bound volume from the shelf. 18th century, very rare. He opened to page 42. I shined my flashlight on the text. It was in French. "Le silence absolu," I read. "To create the absolute silence, one must invert the vibration. The stone must be obsidian. The shape must be a perfect sphere. And the sacrifice must be willing." "Sacrifice?" Jasper squeaked. "Not a blood sacrifice," I said, reading on. "The sacrifice of the voice. The keeper must surrender their connection to the Loa. They must speak the word of closing into the void, and never speak again. It steals your voice? Jasper whispered. It steals the hum, I realized. But the cost is, you lose your connection to everything, the living and the dead. You become a hollow shell. Like Silas, Jasper said. Silas? Think about it, Jasper said. He's cold. He has no empathy. He's obsessed with silence. What if he already went through it? Or tried to? He's a null, I whispered. That's why the hum was curated at his house. He doesn't just block ghosts. He eats them. Click. The lights in the aisle flickered. Did you hear that? Jasper froze. Footsteps. Heavy, deliberate footsteps on the concrete floor. Security? I whispered. No, Jasper said. Security wears sneakers. Those are hard soles. We ducked behind a stack of microfiche cabinets. The footsteps got closer. A shadow stretched across the floor. A man walked past our aisle. He was wearing a gray suit. He was carrying a cane. Silas. He's here, I breathed. How? He's a donor, Jasper whispered. The Blackwood wing is upstairs. He probably has a master key. Silas stopped at the end of the aisle. He paused. He sniffed the air. I know you're here, Merritt, he called out softly. I can smell the cemetery mud on your boots. We didn't breathe. You're looking for answers, Silas said, walking slowly down the row. But you're looking in the wrong place. Books can only tell you the history. They can't tell you the feeling. He stopped at the shelf we had just vacated. He saw the gap where the grimoire had been. Ah, he smiled. The Saint Domingue text, a classic. Did you get to the part about the sacrifice? I gripped my flashlight. It's a metaphor, of course, Silas said. You don't lose your voice. You just lose the noise. The constant, maddening noise of the world. It's bliss, Merritt. I can give it to you. We don't want it, Jasper yelled, popping up. Jasper, no! I grabbed him. Silas turned. His eyes were cold, dead sharks. Mr. Director, he smoothed his lapel. Trespassing on university property? That's a terminable offense. You're trespassing too, Jasper countered bravely. I own the building, Silas reminded him. Or my family does. He raised his cane. Give me the book. Run! I heightened. I threw the heavy grimoire at him. It hit him in the chest. He stumbled back. We bolted. We sprinted down the aisle, past the rows of books, toward the emergency exit. He's coming! Jasper screamed, looking back. Silas was pursuing, surprisingly fast for a man with a cane. I hit the crash bar on the door. Clang. It opened. The alarm blared. Weep, weep, weep. We tumbled out into the cool night air of the quad. Go, go! We ran to the truck. I fumbled with the keys. Start it, Jasper screamed. I turned the ignition. The engine roared. As we peeled out of the parking lot, I looked back. Silas was standing in the doorway, bathed in the red strobe of the alarm light. He wasn't chasing us. He was watching, and he was smiling. He let us go, I realized. Why? Maybe he doesn't need the book, Jasper panted, clutching his chest. No, I said. He knows we read it. He knows we know the cost. The sacrifice, Jasper whispered. He wants me to choose, I said. He wants me to want the silence, to serve it willingly. He's crazy. He's a Blackwood, I said. Same thing. I drove into the night. We had the knowledge, but Silas had the patience and the match. Chapter 8. The Silent Room. We parked the truck a mile down the road, hidden in a grove of pine trees. The Blackwood plantation was too well guarded for a frontal assault, even if we had a legitimate reason to be there. Which we didn't. We were breaking and entering. Again. This is becoming a habit, Jasper whispered as we adjusted our gear. He was wearing black turtlenecks. In Florida. In July. It's tactical, I said, checking my flashlight. And it breathes. It itches, Jasper corrected. I feel like a cat burglar in a wool sock. We approached the estate from the riverside. The marsh grass was waist-high and sharp as razor blades. The mud sucked at our boots with every step, sounding like a wet kiss. "Quiet!" I hissed. "I am trying," Jasper panted. "The mud is aggressive." We reached the perimeter fence. It was wrought iron, 8 feet high, and topped with spikes that looked like fleur-de-lis, but were sharpened to needle points. "Do you have the wire cutters?" Jasper asked. "This is iron," I said. "You don't cut it, you climb it." I boosted Jasper up. He groaned, scrabbling for purchase on the slippery metal. He tore his pants. Again. But he made it over. I followed, vaulting the top with the grace born of years working on scaffolding. We dropped into the manicured garden. The silence hit me instantly. Usually, a garden at night is noisy. Crickets, frogs, wind in the trees. Here, nothing. The air was still. The trees stood like statues. Even the crickets seemed afraid to chirp. "The hum," I whispered, touching my jaw. "It's gone. Completely." "Is that good?" "No, it feels amputated." We moved toward the main house. It was a massive Greek revival structure, white columns glowing like bones in the moonlight. But we weren't going to the house. We were going to the dependency building, the old kitchen house where the map indicated the entrance to the lower levels lay. "The door is modern," Jasper noted, shining his light on the keypad lock. "Digital. Silas likes his toys," I said. "But he put a digital lock on an 1850s door frame. The wood is soft." I didn't hack the code. I used a pry bar on the hinge side. The screws ripped out of the rotted cypress wood with a dull crunch. We slipped inside. It was a storage room. Crates, statues, and coffins? "Please tell me those are empty." Jasper pointed out a stack of sarcophagi. "They're collectibles," I said. "Silas collects death." We found the trap door under a rug. It was heavy iron, counterweighted. We descended the stone stairs. The air got colder, and the silence got heavier. It pressed against my ears like water. I swallowed to pop them, but nothing happened. "My ears feel weird," Jasper whispered, but his voice sounded distant, muffled, as if he was speaking from inside a pillow. "Acoustic dampening," I said. My own voice sounded flat, dead. We reached the bottom, the silent room. It wasn't just a basement. It was a masterpiece of negation. The walls were lined with black tiles, obsidian, volcanic glass. But they weren't flat. They were faceted, jagged, designed to break up sound waves and scatter them into nothingness. The floor was cork. The ceiling was a dome of soft, porous acoustic foam, a modern addition. "It's beautiful," Jasper breathed, in a terrifying way. I walked to the center of the room. I stomped my boot. Usually a stomp echoes. Thud, thud, thud. Here, thud. The sound died instantly. It was swallowed by the walls. "It's a sensory deprivation tank," I said. "For ghosts." I closed my eyes. I reached out for the hum. Nothing. Just a vast, empty, gray void. "Can you hear them?" Jasper asked. "No," I said. "It works. It's peaceful." For a second, I felt the seductive pull of it, to just sit here, forever. No more buzzing, no more intrusive thoughts from the dead. Just me. "Merritt!" Jasper grabbed my arm. "Snap out of it. Your eyes were rolling back." I shook my head. The room, it's hypnotic. We need to find proof, Jasper said, and leave. This place gives me the creeps. We searched the room. In the corner, on a pedestal, sat a glass case. Inside was a tuning fork. Large, black, obsidian. The key, I whispered. I reached for the case. Wait, Jasper said. Look at the floor. I looked down. A thin laser beam, red, barely visible, encircled the pedestal. Modern security again, I sighed. Silas really doesn't trust his ancestors. Can we step over it? It's a pressure sensor too, I said, pointing to the tiles. If we shift the weight, then we leave it, Jasper said. We saw it. We can testify. No, I said. Silas will just move it. We need it. I took a deep breath. I have an idea, I said. Indiana Jones again. The sandbag swap? Jasper looked skeptical. That never works. It works if the weight is exact, I said. Calculated. I picked up a piece of obsidian tile from a pile of spares in the corner. I weighed it in my hand. Too light, I added a second piece. Closer. I took off my boot. I put the rocks in the boot. Merritt, that is disgusting. It's physics, I said. I approached the pedestal. I held the boot over the glass case. 1, 2, 3. I swapped the fork for the boot in one fluid motion. Click. The laser didn't trip. The alarm didn't sound. Ha! I grinned, holding the heavy obsidian fork. Take that, Blackwood. And then the door slammed shut. Boom. The heavy iron door at the top of the stairs swung closed with a finality that shook the floor. You triggered the weight sensor, Jasper yelled. No, I said, looking at the door. I didn't trigger it. A voice came over a hidden speaker system. Welcome, guests. Silas's voice filled the room. It was crisp, amplified. I see you found the focal point. Please, make yourselves comfortable. The oxygen scrubbers have been disabled. You have approximately 2 hours before the silence becomes permanent. He was watching, I realized. The whole time. He trapped us, Jasper hyperventilated. We're going to die in a soundproof box. No, I said, gripping the tuning fork. We're not going to die. We have the key. I struck the fork against the pedestal. A low, resonant tone filled the room. It didn't die. It grew. It vibrated against the obsidian walls. The room was designed to kill sound, but this sound was designed to break the room. Cover your ears, Jasper, I yelled. I'm going to ring the bell. Chapter 9. The Resonance. The sound of the tuning fork died away, leaving a ringing silence in the room. It worked, Jasper whispered, clutching his chest. We broke the sensor lock. We broke the room, I corrected. The laser grid is down, but so is the ventilation system. The air is already getting stale. The heavy iron door at the top of the stairs clicked. Guests? Silas's voice crackled over the intercom for the last time. It seems you have chosen noise over peace. A pity. The guards are on their way. We have to go, I said. Now. We ran up the stairs. I kicked the door open. We burst into the storage room. Which way? Jasper panicked. The garden? No, I said. He'll expect us to run for the river. He'll have dogs. Then where? Up, I said. The roof. Merritt, we are not Batman. The roof connects to the trellis. The trellis leads to the oak tree. The oak tree hangs over the wall. That sounds like a lot of variables, Jasper muttered, but he followed me. We scrambled up the external fire escape of the dependency building. Halfway up, we heard the barking. Dobermans. Deep, chesty barks that promised violence. Flashlights swept the garden below. There, a guard yelled. On the stairs! Move! I shoved Jasper. We reached the roof. It was slate, slick with dew. Stay low, I hissed. We crawled along the ridgeline. Below us, the garden was swarming with men in black tactical gear. Silas wasn't taking chances. The trellis. I pointed to the far end of the roof. It was covered in wisteria, thick, woody vines. It won't hold us, Jasper said. It's wisteria, I said. It can hold a truck. It's an invasive species. I swung over the edge. The vines scratched my face, but they held. I climbed down to the branch of the massive live oak. Jump, I whispered. Jasper jumped. He landed on the branch next to me, wobbling precariously. Okay, I said. Now the wall. We shimmied along the branch. It extended over the chemical-tipped spikes of the iron fence. We have to drop, I said. It's 10 feet. I have bad knees, Jasper whimpered. You have worse luck, I said. Jump! We dropped. I hit the soft dirt of the riverbank and rolled. Jasper hit the dirt and groaned. My hip. Run! We sprinted into the marsh grass. Behind us, the dogs were barking at the wall. They couldn't climb trees. We ran until my lungs burned. We ran until the mud was sucking at our boots and the smell of the river was overpowering. Finally, we collapsed near the truck. We made it, Jasper gasped, lying on his back in the pine needles. And we have the fork, I said, tapping my pocket. Or, wait. I checked my pocket. Empty. Merritt? I dropped it, I whispered, running through the marsh. You lost the key? It doesn't matter, I said, looking back at the plantation lights. Silas has it, but he also knows we broke his room. He knows silence isn't absolute. So we won? No, I said. We just poked the bear. The hum buzzed in my jaw. War. Coming. Let's go home, I said, before the bear wakes up. Chapter 10. The Aftermath. The smell hit me before I even saw the smoke. It was a thick, acrid stench that coated the back of my throat like warm asphalt. A mix of wet charcoal, melted vinyl, and the heartbreaking, unmistakable scent of burning paper. It was the smell of history dying. No, I whispered, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I turned the corner onto Oak Haven Lane. The sky was lit up with flashing lights, red, blue, and the stark white of emergency floods. And in the center of the chaos, the carriage house stood like a blackened, broken tooth against the twilight sky. Smoke was still pouring from the shattered windows of the second floor. The slate roof, usually so pristine, was slick with water and ash. Firemen were coiling hoses, their faces grim and streaked with soot. I slammed the truck into park and jumped out, ignoring the police tape fluttering in the breeze. Rourke! I screamed. Ma'am, you can't go in there. A uniformed cop tried to grab my arm. That's my uncle. I shoved past him. Rourke! Merritt! I spun around. Rourke was sitting on the back bumper of an ambulance. He was wrapped in a shock blanket that looked like tinfoil. His face was gray, his eyes wide and vacant. He held a styrofoam cup of coffee with both hands, shaking so hard the dark liquid was sloshing over the rim. Oh, thank God, I breathed, running to him. I dropped to my knees in the wet grass. Are you okay? Are you hurt? Rourke looked at me, blinking slowly. He didn't seem to see me. He was looking past me, at the black hole where his study window used to be. The folio, he whispered. His voice was a rasp, damaged by heat and smoke. The 1840 edition of Vance Masonry. It was on the desk. First printing. Rourke, forget the book, I said, grabbing his cold hands. Are you burned? And the letters? He continued, his voice rising in panic. The letters from Jeremiah. They were in the drawer. I need to check. I need to go in. He tried to stand up. He was wearing socks. One was soaked with muddy water. "No," I pushed him back down gently. "You can't go in. It's gone, Rourke." "I have to catalog it," he cried, tears cutting tracks through the soot on his cheeks. "If I don't list it, it's like it never existed. The ash. I have to sift the ash." "We will," I promised, holding him as he shook. "We'll sift every inch. But not tonight." "I was drinking tea," he sobbed into my shoulder. "In the kitchen. I heard glass break upstairs. Then, whoosh. It was so fast. The heat came down the stairs like a physical weight. I couldn't get up there, Merritt. I couldn't save them." "You saved yourself," I said. "That's enough." "Is it?" Detective Pascoe stepped out of the shadows. He looked tired. His suit was rumpled, and he smelled like a campfire. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like he saved himself and torched the evidence. "Accelerant," Pascoe continued, ignoring my glare. "Kerosene. We found a can in the garden shed." "It wasn't me," Rourke said, shrinking back into the blanket. "Ellis, you know me. I didn't do this." "It's your shed, Rourke," Pascoe said gently, but with steel underneath. "And you were the only one home." "He didn't kill Arlene," I snapped, standing up to face Pascoe. "And he didn't burn his own house down. Someone is framing him, Ellis. Can't you see that?" Pascoe sighed. He took my arm and pulled me away from the ambulance, out of Rourke's earshot. "Look, Merritt." He lowered his voice. "I know Rourke. I know he's a gentle soul, but the mayor is crawling up my ass on this one. Arlene Crouch has family in Miami, wealthy family. And Silas Blackwood made a very generous donation to the Police Benevolent Fund this morning." "Silas?" I hissed. "He's buying you off?" "He's buying pressure," Pascoe corrected. "He's demanding swift justice for the community. And right now, Rourke looks like the only suspect. First a body in his crypt, now his house burning down. It fits the profile of a man spiraling." "It fits the profile of a man being targeted," I argued. "Silas bought the evidence at the auction. Now he's burning the rest." "Silas has an alibi," Pascoe said. "But Rourke doesn't. I have to take him in, Merritt. Protective custody, if you want to call it that. But he's not staying here." "No," I said. I looked at Rourke, who was trying to wipe a smudge of ash off his silk pajama sleeve. "He won't survive a night in holding. He's in shock. If you lock him up, you'll break him." "I can't let him walk." "House arrest," I countered. "He stays with me. Your apartment isn't secure." "Fine." Jasper appeared, holding a stack of wet books. "He stays with V." "The voodoo shop?" "It's a fortress," Jasper said. "Fence, dog, shotgun. If Rourke tries to leave, the dog will sit on him. If anyone tries to get in, V will shoot them." Pascoe rubbed his face. "Fine, but Officer Miller sits outside the gate. And if Rourke disappears..." "He won't," I said. We drove to V's in silence. We got Rourke settled on V's floral couch. V made tea, heavy on the whiskey. I went outside. I leaned against the hood of my truck, looking at the stars. The smell of smoke was still in my hair. I looked at my hands. They were covered in soot. Charcoal. The remains of the carriage house. I closed my eyes and reached out with the hum. Usually I pushed it away, but tonight I let it in. I felt the stone of the earth. I felt the brick of the carriage house 5 miles away, cooling in the night air. I felt the pain of the masonry, broken, burned, standing. "It's still standing," I whispered. "The shell is there. We can rebuild it," Jasper said, coming out to join me. "No," I said, opening my eyes. "We're not just going to rebuild it. We're going to reinforce it. I'm going to repoint every joint with Type S mortar. I'm going to install steel bracing. I'm going to make that house so strong that Silas Blackwood could hit it with a tank and it wouldn't crack. That sounds expensive, Jasper noted. I'm a mason, I said. I build things to last. And I preserve things. I looked at Jasper. Silas wants to erase my family, I said. He wants to silence us. But stone doesn't burn, Jasper. And neither do I. So what's the plan? We go back to the source, I said. The crypt, the foundation. If Rourke is right, Elias hid the real book in the drainage tunnel. The swamp, Jasper sighed. Why is it always a swamp? Because history is dirty, I said. And we're going to get filthy. Chapter 11. The drainage. Rourke had called it a sluice gate. That sounded architectural, dignified. In reality, it was a hole in the mud that smelled like Methuselah's armpit. We parked the truck on the fire road behind the sinking grounds. The cypress trees here were ancient, their knees jutting out of the black water like skeletal knuckles. The swamp was alive tonight. The cicadas were screaming, and the bullfrogs were booming like distant artillery. This is a mistake, Jasper said, looking at the waist-deep water we had to wade through to reach the pipe. I am wearing Italian loafers. They are not amphibious. Take them off, I said, tying my boots around my neck. We go barefoot. Better traction. I will catch a parasite, Jasper mourned. I will die of a 19th century disease that was supposed to be eradicated. You'll be fine. Just don't drink the water. And don't splash. Why? Gators hunt by vibration, I said cheerfully. We waded in. The water was warm, slimy, and thick with duckweed. The mud at the bottom was soft, sucking at my toes with every step. I tried not to think about what was buried in it. We reached the gate. It was a rusted iron grate set into the stone foundation of the mausoleum hill. Locked, Jasper noted, rattling the bars. I ran my hand over the iron. The hum buzzed. Rust. Weakness. It's iron, I said, and it's been rusting in acidic swamp water since 1890. It looks solid, but the crystal structure is shot. I jammed the pry bar into the lock mechanism. I leaned my weight into it. Crunch. The entire locking bar snapped off like a dry twig. The grate swung inward with a groan. After you, I said. We crawled into the tunnel. It was tight. Round, brick-lined, and barely 4 feet wide. We had to crouch walk. The air was stale, cold, and smelled of dry rot and old incense. This isn't a drain, Jasper whispered, shining his light on the bricks. Look at the pattern, herringbone, and the mortar joints are too clean. This was built for people, not water. It's a sally port, I realized. A secret exit. We crawled for what felt like miles. My knees were raw. The tunnel sloped upward, spiraling into the hill. Stop, Jasper hissed. What? Roots. A massive root ball from a surface oak had punched through the ceiling. It choked the tunnel completely. Dead end? Jasper asked, his voice rising in panic. Please tell me we don't have to go back. I touched the roots. They were dry, brittle. Pass me the saw, I said. I spent 20 minutes hacking at the roots with my folding saw. Dust and dirt rained down on my face, blinding me. SNAP. The main root gave way. A hole opened up, large enough to squeeze through. I pulled myself through the tangle. I popped out. Not in the crypt, but in small, square antechamber. It was dry. There was a stone bench, and on the bench sat a lantern, dry of oil, and a pair of dusty boots. Elias's mudroom, I whispered, helping Jasper through. There was a door ahead. A stone slab. No handle. No keyhole. How do we open it? Jasper asked, shining his light on the smooth granite. I looked at the floor. Mason's marks were carved into the flagstones. 3 large squares, each containing a symbol. Compass, square, plumb line. It's a pressure plate, Jasper said. Like Indiana Jones. Elias wasn't that dramatic, I said. He was a mason. He valued order. So which one? Jasper hovered his foot over the compass. Don't, I warned. The compass draws the circle. It represents the limit of your desires. The plumb line represents uprightness, vertical truth. The square represents morality, squaring your actions. The hum buzzed. Order, sequence, build. You don't just step on one, I realized. You have to build the wall. What? First you lay the stone. I stepped on the square. Click. Then you check the vertical. I stepped on the plumb line. Click. Then you check the horizontal. I stepped on the level. Wait, where was the level? Ah, the compass acts as the check. I stepped on the compass. Clunk. The stone door groaned. Dust poured from the top jamb. It rolled aside. We stepped through. We were in the main crypt. The sarcophagi of my ancestors loomed in the darkness. Grandfather, grandmother. Arlene's body was gone. Pasco had removed it. But the smell of lilies remained. We're in, I breathed. Now where is the grimoire? Jasper asked, looking at the coffins. Please tell me we don't have to open a casket. It's not in a coffin, I said. Arlene said foundation. Elias built this place. I walked to the center of the room, to the main support pillar. It was a massive Doric column of polished granite. I tapped it with the pry bar. Tink, solid. I tapped higher. Tink, solid. I tapped the capital, the decorative scroll work at the top. Thunk, hollow. Give me a boost, I said. Jasper laced his fingers. I stepped up. I reached into the stone-carved acanthus leaves. My fingers brushed something, not just a book. Wires. Wait! I froze. What is it? Wires, I whispered. Tripwires, the hum screamed. Trap. Don't move, a voice said from the main entrance. Reflexively, I grabbed the book, carefully ignoring the wire, and dropped to the floor. Silas Blackwood stood in the open doorway to the cemetery. He wasn't alone. He had a gun and a flashlight. You solved the puzzle, Silas said, stepping into the crypt. I'm impressed. I tried to force the drainage gate with a hydraulic jack, but the roots stopped me. I assumed you'd drown. You sealed the roots? I asked. You planted the oak tree? My grandfather did, Silas said. Long-term planning. The Blackwoods are very patient. He held out his hand. Pass the book to me, Merritt, and try not to trigger the explosive charge Elias left in the Capitol. It would be a shame to bring the roof down on all of us. Chapter 12. The Keeping. Silas stood in the doorway, the flashlight beam cutting a sharp cone through the dust motes. The gun in his hand was an antique revolver, a Webley, likely. Heavy, reliable, and loud. Give me the book, Merritt, he repeated. His voice was calm, conversational. Why? I asked, clutching the leather-bound volume to my chest. It's just family history. Boring lists of births and deaths. We both know that's a lie, Silas said. He stepped closer. Jasper took a step back, bumping into a marble angel. That book contains the blueprints for the resonance chamber, the tuning specifications, and the frequency. The frequency for what? Jasper squeaked. For the silence, Silas said. He lowered the gun slightly, sensing he had an audience. He loved an audience. You think the hum is a gift, Merritt? No. It's noise. It's the incessant, chaotic chatter of the dead. They never shut up. They whine, they complain, they demand. It drove my great-grandfather mad. It drove your Aunt Arlene to despair.
And you want to stop it?
I want to control it, Silas corrected. I want to filter it. The resonance chamber. Elias Vance built it to amplify the hum, to turn a keeper into a receiver of infinite sensitivity. But it can be reversed. With the right tuning fork, obsidian tuned to C-sharp sub-zero, the room becomes a sink, a black hole for sound. It swallows the ghosts. It creates perfect, holy silence.
You want to lobotomize the dead, I realized.
I want peace, Silas said. Imagine it, Merritt. No more voices in your head. No more headaches, just quiet. For a second, the temptation washed over me. No more hum. No more intruder buzz. Just silence. It sounded like heaven. But the ghosts don't disappear, I said. They're still there. You just trap them. Collateral damage. Silas shrugged. Now, the book. I looked at Jasper. He looked terrified. I looked at the stone column behind me. The capital with the explosive charge. The hum buzzed. Vibrate. Crack. Collapse. I looked at the Webley. You can't shoot me, I said. Oh? Silas raised an eyebrow. This is a crypt, I said. Granite walls, vaulted ceiling, perfect acoustics. So? A gunshot in here? I shook my head. 160 decibels, bouncing off hard stone. It'll rupture your eardrums instantly. You'll be deaf before the bullet hits me. Silas hesitated. He glanced at the walls. He was a collector. He knew about acoustics. Also, I added, the vibration might trigger the old blasting caps in the column. If this roof comes down, we all die. Silas lowered the gun. Clever girl. Mason's daughter. He put the gun in his pocket. He pulled out the cane. The raven-headed cane. He twisted the handle. A blade slid out, thin, long, and gleaming silver. A sword stick. No noise. Silas smiled. No vibration. Just steel. He lunged. Jasper, move! I shoved Jasper behind a sarcophagus. I swung the heavy book. It connected with the cane, deflecting the thrust. Silas was fast. He feinted left, then slashed right. The blade caught my sleeve, tearing the fabric. I trained in fencing at boarding school. Silas sneered. Where did you train, Merritt? The back of a pickup truck? I trained in a quarry, I grunted, backing up. I needed a weapon. My pry bar was on the floor, too far away. I had my trowel in my back pocket. 4 inches of steel. Not enough against a sword, but I had the room. The hum was screaming now. The ghosts were agitated by the violence. The air pressure was dropping. Spade! I yelled. Not at my employee, at the tool. I grabbed a heavy, rusty shovel leaning against the wall, left by the sexton. I swung it like a baseball bat. Clang! I hit the sword. The vibration traveled up Silas's arm. He winced. Crude, he spat. He lunged again. This time, he aimed for my leg. I jumped back, landing on the compass stone. Click. The floor beneath Silas shifted. The square stone sank an inch. He stumbled. Watch your step, I said. Elias didn't just build an exit. He built a defense system. Silas regained his balance. He looked furious now. The veneer of the gentleman collector was gone. Give me the book, he roared. His voice echoed. Book, book, book. The echo didn't fade. It grew louder. I felt it in my teeth. The resonance. Elias had tuned this crypt. It wasn't just a tomb. It was a bell. Jasper, I yelled. Cover your ears. What? Jasper peeked out. Cover them. I dropped the shovel. I took a deep breath. I focused on the hum, the chaotic noise. I grabbed it mentally, like grabbing a live wire, and I screamed. Not a scream of fear. A note, a high, piercing G-sharp. The resonant frequency of quartz. S-C-R-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E- E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E E
E, 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 E,
E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E, E. The sound hit the curved ceiling. The granite focused it back down. The room amplified it. It wasn't just sound anymore. It was physical force. The glass in the lantern shattered. Silas dropped the sword. He clamped his hands over his ears, screaming silently. He fell to his knees. The vibration shook the dust from the walls. The sarcophagi lids rattled. I held the note. My lungs burned. The hum poured out of me, channeling through my voice. Crack! The explosive charge in the column didn't detonate. It crumbled. The old blasting cap, destabilized by the frequency, fizzled and popped like a firecracker, sending a puff of smoke into the air, but not bringing down the roof. But the vibration was too much for Silas. His equilibrium shattered. He retched, collapsing onto the flagstones. I stopped screaming. The silence that followed was deafening. My ears rang. Silas lay on the floor, groaning, blood trickling from his nose. I walked over. I picked up the sword cane. I snapped the blade under my boot. The silence isn't yours to give, Silas, I rasped, my throat raw. And the noise isn't yours to take. I looked at the book in my hand. I walked to the open drainage grate, the hole leading back to the swamp. No! Silas reached out feebly. I threw the book into the black water. It belongs to the mud now, I said. Silas stared at the dark hole, devastated. You fool, he whispered. You've doomed us all to the noise. Maybe, I said, but at least it's our noise. Sirens wailed in the distance. Pasco was coming. Let's go, Jasper, I said, helping my shaky friend up. Use the front door this time. Chapter 13. The dust settles. The interrogation room at the Fallows police station was painted a color that could only be described as institutional despair. It smelled of stale coffee and fear. I sat on one side of the metal table. Jasper sat next to me, trying to look like a lawyer despite being a CPA. On the other side sat Detective Pasco. And next to him, looking crisp and unruffled despite the hour, was Silas Blackwood's attorney, a man named Sterling, who cost more per hour than I made in a year. "Let's review," Pasco said, rubbing his temples. "Miss Vance, you claim that you entered the Vance mausoleum to perform emergency structural maintenance." "The door was stuck," I said. "I fixed it at 2 a.m., Sterling noted, checking his Rolex. "Tides wait for no man," Jasper said profoundly. Everyone looked at him. "Or structural shifts, due to humidity." "And while inside," Pasco continued, "you encountered Mr. Blackwood." "He broke in," I said. "He threatened us with a sword cane. Mr. Blackwood claims he saw suspicious activity lights in the graveyard and went to investigate as a concerned citizen," Sterling said smoothly. "He claims you attacked him with a shovel." "He had a sword." I slammed my hand on the table. "Look at the cut on my sleeve." "My client claims he was defending himself against a mentally unstable woman who believes she can talk to ghosts," Sterling said. He placed a file on the table. "We have statements from several reliable citizens regarding Miss Vance's eccentricities." I glared at the file. "The garden club." "It's a he said, she said," Pasco sighed. "With no witnesses except Mr. Thorne here." "I am a witness," Jasper said. "You are an accomplice," Sterling countered. "You are trespassing." "We found the wire," Pasco cut in the column. It matches the wire used in blasting caps from the 1920s. We also found the sword cane. It's illegal to carry a concealed blade in Fallows." Sterling paused. "Mr. Blackwood is a collector of antiques. He was unaware of the cane's mechanism." "Bullshit," I muttered. "However," Sterling stood up, buttoning his jacket, "given the confusion and Mr. Blackwood's desire to avoid a public spectacle that might distress the community, he is willing to decline pressing charges for the assault, provided Miss Vance does the same." "He tried to kill me," I yelled. "And you have no proof," Pasco said quietly. "Just the word of two people who broke into a crypt through a sewer." I looked at Pasco. His eyes were pleading. "Take the deal. I can't win this." "Fine," I spat. "No charges." "Excellent," Sterling smiled. "Mr. Blackwood also requests the return of his property, the book." "The book fell in the swamp," I said with great satisfaction. "It's gone. Mulch." Sterling's smile twitched. "A pity. Good day." He left. Pasco slumped in his chair. "You know he's going to sue you for emotional distress or something." "Let him try," I said. "I have a shovel." We walked out of the station into the blinding morning sun. "I need a drink," Jasper said. "And a tetanus shot." "We need to see Rourke," I said. We found Rourke at V's shop. He was sitting in the back garden, wearing one of V's silk caftans, which surprisingly suited him, and feeding a piece of bacon to the guard dog, a massive Rottweiler named Fluffy. "Uncle Rourke?" He looked up. He looked tired, but the manic energy was gone. "Merritt," he smiled. "V is making grits, and she has a truly fascinating collection of books on Haitian metaphysics." "We're safe," I said, sitting on the bench beside him. Silas backed off. "For now." "He won't stop," Rourke said, petting the dog. "He's a Blackwood. They don't stop. They just wait." "Then we wait too," I said. "And we rebuild." "The carriage house." Rourke's face fell. "We'll fix it," I promised. I called the insurance adjuster, and I called my crew. "We start clearing the debris tomorrow." "I don't have anywhere to live," Rourke whispered. You live here, V called out from the back door, holding a spatula. I need someone to organize my inventory. Your uncle has already alphabetized my herbs, Merritt. He is useful. Rourke blushed. The valerian root was next to the vervain. It was chaos. I laughed. For the first time in days, the knot in my chest loosened. Okay, I said. Okay. The hum buzzed in the garden. Peace. Rest. Wait. I closed my eyes. We had won the battle. But the war was just starting. Chapter 14. The Choice. 3 days later, I was back in the boneyard, not breaking in, working. I was repointing the granite base of the Confederate monument, which, ironically, was leaning to the left. It was hot, manual labor. The rhythm involving the chisel and hammer was soothing. Clink, clink, clink. The world made sense when you were hitting it with a hammer. You have terrible form, a voice said. I didn't turn around. Fieldwork isn't about form. It's about not hitting your thumb. It is about respect for the stone, the voice corrected. It was a woman's voice, husky, accented, like smoke and rum. I turned slowly. She was sitting on a tombstone 10 feet away. She was wearing a purple suit, a top hat with sunglasses tucked into the band, and holding a cigar. Her face was painted, half black, half white. Maman Brigitte, the Loa of the dead. You're not real, I said, wiping sweat from my eyes. I'm hallucinating. Heat stroke. You wish, she smiled, revealing gold teeth. You made a lot of noise the other night, Tiffy. You woke up the whole neighborhood. I had to, I said. Silas was going to silence them. Silence is boring, Bridget agreed. She took a drag of the cigar. But noise has consequences. You shouted at the darker things, Merritt, and now they know where you are. Who? The ones who don't want to be kept, she said cryptically. The ones who want to keep you. She hopped off the tombstone. She walked toward me, her cane tapping on the flagstones. You destroyed the book, she said. It was dangerous. It was power, she corrected. You threw away your heritage. I threw away an instruction manual for torture, I snapped. I don't want that kind of power. Bridget stared at me. Her eyes were impossibly violet behind the smoke. Then what do you want? I want to do my job, I said. I want to fix the cracks. I want to keep the dead in their graves and the living in their houses. I want balance. Brigitte laughed, a deep belly laugh that shook the leaves on the trees. Balance, she cackled. There is no balance, chérie. There is only the push and the pull. You pushed back this time. Good. But the pull is coming. She reached out and touched my forehead. Her thumb was cold as ice. Your power is growing, she whispered. The hum is changing. It's not just a radio anymore. It's a weapon. Be careful where you point it. She stepped back. The smoke from her cigar thickened, swirling around her like a veil. And tell that boy Jasper to stop wearing Italian shoes in the swamp, she added. It offends the gators. The smoke cleared. She was gone. On the tombstone where she had been sitting, a single purple chili pepper lay in the sun. I picked it up. It was real, waxy and hot. Merritt? I jumped. V was walking up the path, holding a picnic basket. Who are you talking to? She asked. No one, I said, slipping the pepper into my pocket. Just ghosts. Well, come eat, V said. I made sandwiches, and I have news. Good news? News, V said, her face clouding. My mother called. My stomach dropped. V's mother, Lenny, was a force of nature. A hurricane in human form. Is she okay?
She's coming to visit,
V said grimly. She heard about the fire. She thinks I'm living in squalor and wants to assess the situation. When? Tuesday, I groaned. Silas Blackwood. Arson. And now Lenny. Can't catch a break. At least we're alive, V said, handing me a sandwich. I looked at the mausoleum on the hill. The door was sealed. The hum was quiet, a gentle background buzz of history. Yeah, I said, taking a bite. We're alive, and for the first time in a long time, I was glad about it. The end.
Thank you for listening. Please visit me at winvalentine.com to stay up to date. Please subscribe, leave a comment, and review.